Hare Krishna. Welcome all of our YouTube live listeners and our listeners over Facebook Live. Welcome to this session 76 of Sri Bhagavatamrita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Om Jnanatmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanath Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaura Katha Thamadaya Nagara Grama Tarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangulangayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Again, we welcome all of our YouTube live listeners and our Facebook live listeners. Welcome to all of you to this session 76 of Sri Bhagavatamrita. So before we move to the session, we would like to congratulate the devotees who participated in yesterday's quiz contest. So the devotees who participated from Facebook are Meena Mataji and Ranjani Gopika Mataji. Congratulations to both of you. And from YouTube, we'd like to congratulate Geeta Varadarajan Mataji, Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu, Barshana Chitra Mataji, Rekha Mataji, and Hari Krishna Maddali Prabhu. Again, congratulations to all of you for joining us in this session. We are very, very grateful to all of you for your online session and online association, and also for participating in the quiz session from all the time regularly. So thank you all so much. So today we are going to cover three chapters, chapters 65, 66, and 67. So chapter 65 is entitled Lord Balaram Visits Vrindavan. So here text 1, Srila Shukadev Goswami says, O best of the Kurus, Maharaj Parikshit, once Lord Balaram, eager to visit his well-wishing friends, mounted his chariot and travelled to Nanda Gokula. So here Srila Jiva Goswami points out that Lord Balaram's journey to Sri Vrindavan Dham is also described in the Harivamsha. It is described there saying that remembering the deep friendship he once enjoyed with the cowherd folk, Lord Ram went alone to Vraja, having taken Lord Krishna's permission. By taking Krishna's permission, Lord Balaram went to Vrindavan. The simple residents of Vrindavan were aggrieved that Krishna had gone to live elsewhere, so Balaram went there to console them. This is the mood of the spiritual master. This is the mood of the Adi Guru Sri Balaram. He cannot see his devotees in anxiety. He cannot see his devotees undergoing, different kind of stresses or feeling troubled. They cannot see that. So in order to relieve them and to console them, Lord Balaram visited Sri Vrindavan Dham. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also points out here that why did, Krishna first send Uddhava to Vrindavan? Now we see Lord Balaram coming to Vrindavan. Why is Krishna? Why is Krishna not coming to Vrindavan? So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he points out, he says that, this Sri Krishna, he's the great ocean of pure love. He did not go to Vraja because the Yadavas, they were thinking that the Lord's beloved gopis are so pure in their love for Krishna, and his parents, dearest Nanda and Jashoda, are extremely affectionate towards him. What to speak of the gopis and Nanda Jashoda, the entire Brajadham, including the cows and the peacocks and the butterflies and the birds, they are all awaiting for Krishna. They are thirsty for Krishna's association. So Lord Krishna, he is controlled by pure love. So if he goes to see them in Braj, how will he be able to ever leave them and come back to us? So thinking like this in their mind, the Yadavas actually prevented the Lord and requested the Lord not to leave them, because Krishna's presence was much needed in Dwarka at that time. So the Yadavas, they actually prevented the Lord from leaving them and going to Vrindavan, knowing that he would actually become subservient to the pastimes in which he reciprocates the ever increasing love of the inhabitants of Vraj. Therefore the Yadavas forbade the Lord to leave Dwarka. And the Lord is always controlled by love. So the Lord, since he cannot come, he sent his dearly beloved Dauji. He sent, Lord Balaram to Vrindavan. So having long suffered, Srimad Bhagavatam continues, that having long suffered the anxiety of separation, the cowherd men and the wives embraced Lord Balaram. The Lord then offered respects to his parents and then joyfully greeted him, who joyfully greeted Lord Balaram with suitable prayers. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this regard that we repeatedly glorify Lord Balaram. because he is the original personality. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Lord Balaram is the original personality of eternal bliss, Nityananda. And he felt pained by his love for the residents of Vraj, and thus he wanted to see them, even at the cost of leaving Krishna. You see, Lord Balaram, can we imagine Balaram's condition? Balaram, he has the fortune that he can always be by Krishna's side. But he's leaving the association of Krishna and he's coming to pacify the devotees of Krishna. That is the greatness of Lord Balaram. Similar is the greatness of, our acharyas, our spiritual masters. They are in so much bliss. They are in so much ecstasy, already experiencing that in their, pure relationship with Krishna. But they leave that. Why? In order to deliver us conditioned souls. That is the mercy of the Guru Tattva, who is manifested in the form of Lord Balaram, who is manifesting in the form of Lord Nityananda. So this is the mercy of the Acharya. This is the mercy of the Guru, that the Guru is ready to leave their personal service, their personal association with Krishna and, come for the benefit of the living entities. This is mercy beyond, that's why they are the Acharyas. When we address our Acharyas, we call them as Karuna Sindhu. They are an ocean of mercy. Why ocean of mercy? Because there is no limit to the ocean. It is limitless. When we stand on the shores of the ocean, we can't see where the ocean ends. That's why it is called the ocean of mercy, Kripa Sindhu. Text 3, Nanda and Jashoda, they prayed to Lord Balaram. They said, "Oh dear Lord Balaram, my dear Lord of the universe, may you and your younger brother Krishna always protect us." Saying this, they raised Balaram onto their laps, embraced him and moistened him with tears from their eyes. So Balaram, he's no longer a child. He's a fully grown man, Lord Balaram. He had sons of his own. He was a married man, completely grown, full adult. But still, in front of his parents, Nanda and Jashoda, by the love that Nanda and Jashoda have for Lord Balaram, they were able to take that elderly Lord Balaram onto their laps. That is the love of parents. That the parents, they can, however big we may become, however, whatever age we may become, but we will always remain kids. We will always remain children in front of our parents. So Lord Balaram, he exemplified that. Then Lord Balaram paid proper respects to the elderly cowherd men, and the younger ones all greeted him respectfully. He met with, all of them with smiles, handshakes, and so on, dealing personally with each one according to age, degree of friendship, and family relationship, Shukadev Goswami says. So based on the degree of friendship, Lord Balaram would have even, given a high five to some, he would have embraced some, and he would have, put his hand around, his, lotus stalk stemmed, arms around his friends. So like this, based on the degree of friendship, the relationship that Lord Balaram has with everyone, he reciprocated with them. Then after resting, the Lord accepted a comfortable seat, and they all gathered around him. With voices faltering out of love for him, those cowherds who had dedicated everything to the lotus-eyed Krishna asked about the health of their dear ones in Dwarka. And Balaram in turn asked about the cowherds' welfare. How are all of you doing? So then text 7, the cowherd said, "O Rama, are all our relatives doing well? And Rama, do all of you with your wives and children still remember us?" So the cowherd men, everyone know that Balaram is now married with his children. And how fondly they're asking, "Do you remember us?" So Shukadev Goswami says, Honored to have the personal audience of Lord Balaram, the young gopis, they smiled and asked him, "Is Krishna the darling of the city women living happily?" According to the acharyas, Lord Krishna's beloved girlfriends were smiling with divine madness since they were feeling extreme unhappiness in separation from their beloved Krishna. And Lord Balaram deeply respected their great love for Krishna. So his younger brother, carries the meaning that Lord Balaram, he honored the gopis, as well as the given meaning that they honored him also. So there was a feeling of mutual respect that Lord Balaram shared with Krishna's gopis. So while speaking these words, the young cowherd women remembered Lord Krishna's laughter, his pleasing conversations with them, his attractive glances, his style of walking, and his loving embraces, and they began to cry. Text 16, the Supreme Lord Balaram, the attractor of all, being expert at various kinds of conciliation, consoled the gopis by relaying to them the confidential messages Lord Krishna had sent with him. These messages deeply touched the gopis' hearts. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he comments on this particular verse, and he substantiates his statement by a verse from the Vishnu Puran, which describes the message that Lord Balaram brought from Krishna to the gopis. So from Vishnu Puran, Srila Jiva Goswami quotes that Lord Balaram, quote, consoled the gopis by giving them Lord Krishna's most charming message, which expressed sweet conciliation, which were inspired by his pure love for them, and which were without a tinge of pride. Srila Jiva Goswami also comments that the use of the name Sankarshan in this verse, in this particular verse, Lord Balaram is addressed as Sankarshan, here implies that Lord Balaram attracted Lord Krishna to appear in his mind, and in this way showed Sri Krishna to the gopis. So thus Lord Balaram consoled Krishna's beloved girlfriends. So you see the use of the word Sankarshan, Srila Jiva Goswami gave such a beautiful purport to it. Sankarshan means the one who attracts. That is called Sankarshan. Akarshan. Akarshan karna matlab one who attracts. So that is Sankarshan. So Lord Sankarshan, he attracted the image of Krishna onto his mind. And it was like a TV, just like, receiving a cable channel like that of Krishna and relaying that to the gopis like that. So he was able to show Krishna to the gopis. That was the potency of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram, the personality of Godhead, resided in Sri Vrindavan Dham for the 2 months of Madhu and Madhava. And during the nights, he gave his cowherd girlfriends conjugal pleasure. So here, Srila Sridhar Swami and also Sri Jiva Goswami and also Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, all three of these authorities, they proclaim a fact saying that the cowherd girlfriends whom Lord Balaram enjoyed with are different from the cowherd girlfriends of Krishna's. There's never a mixing of the rasas. Krishna's girlfriends were a separate group, and Lord Balaram's girlfriends were a separate group. It is in fact explained that when Sri Balaram, who enjoyed conjugal affairs during his visit to Gokul, these girls who enjoyed with Lord Balaram, they had not taken part in Krishna's rasa dance because they were very young at that time. And therefore, they couldn't have taken part in Krishna's rasa dance. So we must understand this as a fact that, they are completely separate groups of gopis. Text 18, in the company of numerous women, Lord Balaram enjoyed in a garden by the Jamuna river. This garden was bathed in the rays of the full moon and caressed by breezes bearing the fragrances of night-blooming lotuses. Generally we know that lotuses bloom during sunrise. The lotuses are generally said to bloom at sun. The sun rays are said to open up the lotuses. But there are some very special lotuses which open up during the night by the rays of the moon. And they have this explicit and, exquisite fragrance. So this particular, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who comments on this particular verse, he explains that Lord Balaram's conjugal pastimes took place in a forest along the riverside of Jamuna at a place known as Sri Ram-ghat, which is far, very far away from the site of Krishna's Rasa dance. So here, Ram-ghat has been glorified, and we know how there's this beautiful bhajan, Jai Radhe Jai Krishna. 2 lines from that bhajan also glorifies Lord Balaram and his pastimes at Ram-ghat. Jaya Ram-ghata Jaya Rohini Nandan Jaya Jaya Vṛndāvana Vasi Jata Jaya. So Ram-ghat, we'll talk more about this Ram-ghat, Sri Ram-ghat, in a little while. But text 19 explains how Lord Balaram enjoys in the company of his beloved Sakhis. So it is explained in text 19 that sent by the demigod Varuna, who is the god of water, the divine Varuni liquor flowed from a tree hollow and made the entire forest even more fragrant with its sweet aroma. So Varuni is said to be a drink which is very, very dear to Lord Balaram. It's nothing but honey. It's just honey which is flavored with natural fruit juices. And beautiful, spices are added to, exuberate the qualities of this Varuni, like nutmeg, camphor. These different spices are added to, make it really, really very, very intoxicating. So this drink, Varuni, is extremely dear to Lord Balaram. So this wind, it is said, which was carrying the aroma of this ambrosial, nectar called Varuni, text 20 describes that the wind carried to Lord Balaram the fragrance of that flood of sweet liquor, and he smelt it and he went to that tree. There he and his female companions, they drank this ambrosial nectar called Varuni. Text 24 and 25 says, intoxicated with joy, Lord Balaram sported flower garlands, including the famous Vaijayanti. He wore a single earring, and beads of perspiration decorated his smiling lotus face like snowflakes. The Lord then summoned the Jamuna river so that he could play in her waters, but she disregarded his command, thinking he was drunk. This angered Lord Balaram, and he began dragging the river with the tip of his plow. You see, Lord Balaram, whenever Lord Balaram's beauty is described, it is said that Balaram is a very, very artistic dresser. He's a perfectionist. And in fact, he is the style icon, for the spiritual world, Lord Balaram. He wears one earring, single earring. And when beads of perspiration come upon his beautiful white lotus-like face, it appears as if snowflakes are around his lotus-like face. So Lord Balaram's beauty is incomparable. So in that intoxicated state, Lord Balaram summoned the Yamuna river because he was feeling very hot. He wanted to chill in the water of river Jamuna. But she thought, misunderstood that the Lord was drunk. And this angered Lord Balaram, and then he just dragged Jamuna by the tip of his plow and said, you're not coming to me, I'll make you come to me. So he dragged her with his plow. Text 26, he tells Jamuna, Lord Balaram said, O sinful one, disrespecting me, you do not come when I call you, but rather move only by your own whim. Therefore, with the tip of my plow, I shall bring you here in 100 streams. So Srila Shukadeva Goswami, he continues to say that thus scolded by the Lord, O king, the frightened river goddess Jamuna came and fell at the lotus feet of Lord Balaram, begging for forgiveness. Trembling, she spoke to him the following words. So Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they comment on this verse that we should not have any confusion, because we know that we have, Kalindi is one of the 8 principal queens of Sri Krishna's in Dwarka. So that Kalindi and Jamuna, are they same? They're expansions, actually. So the goddess who appeared before Lord Balaram is an expansion of Kalindi. So Srila Jiva Goswami calls her actually to be a shadow of Kalindi, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that she is an expansion of Kalindi, and we must not mistake her to be Kalindi herself. So we must always have this in mind, that Lord Balaram always knows the etiquette, that he never interferes in Krishna's group of his queens or his gopis. Lord Balaram never would do that. So then text 28, Goddess Jamuna said, Rama, Rama, O mighty armed one, I know nothing of your prowess. With a single portion of yourself, you hold up the earth, O Lord of the universe. She's glorifying Lord Balaram as Anantashesh. You see, sometimes when, we become proud, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Jamuna was very proud that she was, she had a single stream that she was flowing in Vrindavan. And when she was summoned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Balaram himself, who is, Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, both are actually Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's only one difference. Actually, there are 2 differences between the 2 lords. That one is black and one is white. And there is a difference in the mood. That Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the mood of an enjoyer. And Lord Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the mood of service, in the mood of servitude. So this is the difference between Krishna and Balaram. So when Jamuna, she mistook, she, committed this offense out of her pride. So then she is begging forgiveness, that she immediately realized when Lord Balaram showed his, what his potency is by dragging her with his plow. She immediately came to her senses and she said, you are actually none other than Anantashesh. You are holding up the earth upon your hood. So she says in text 29 that, my dear Lord, please release me, O soul of the universe. I didn't understand your position as the Supreme Godhead, but now I have surrendered unto you, and you are always kind to your devotees. So she surrendered herself and begged forgiveness from Lord Balaram. So Shukadeva Goswami continues that thereupon Lord Balaram released Jamuna like the king of the elephants with his entourage of she-elephants, and he entered the river's water with his female companions. Lord Balaram, he sported in the waters of the Jamuna. And Lord Balaram, after he came out, he was presented with beautiful, fresh garments. Lord Balaram in text 32, it says that he dressed himself in blue garments and put on the gold necklace. Anointed with fragrances and beautifully adorned, he appeared as resplendent as, the king of the heavenly planets. So text 33, Srila Shukadeva Goswami ends by saying, even today, O king, one can see how the Jamuna flows through the many channels created when she was dragged by the unlimitedly powerful Lord Balaram. Thus she demonstrates his prowess, his power, his potency. So, here, when we were doing Braja Mandal Parikrama, the day that we come to Sri Ram-ghat, we walk from Shergarh to Sri Ram-ghat. It's not so much of a walk, but it's a very, very beautiful walk. It's actually on the sandy banks of the Jamuna. And but we don't see the Jamuna till we actually come to Ram-ghat. But the walk is through these, it's very nice sandy. It's like sandy beach, so the river banks of the Jamuna is like that. And when we come to this place of Sri Ram-ghat, we are welcomed by snakes. There are so many snakes, and the villagers, the Brajbasis in this particular village, even little boys, they carry out, with little baskets, they'll just open their basket and there comes a snake right to your face. And that's how they take Lakshmis, these Brajbasi boys. So it is very evident that Ram-ghat, this is the only place in Braj where we see snakes everywhere. There are so many snakes. And one time we saw that just near the temple, there was such a huge python, and it had his, hoods up. Many devotees were saying, no, this is artificial. But then the one who was showing that Brajbasi, he said, artificial. He just gave a little pinch and that snake turned towards it. It was huge. It was really huge. So it's kind of scary for those who are scared of snakes. But the temple is so beautiful. So this, Lord Balaram here, he is called as Khiche Dao. Khiche Dao means when Lord Balaram with his plow, he pulled Jamuna, Balaram ne Jamuna ko kheench liya. So kheench liya means he pulled Jamuna. So that's why he's called as Khiche Dao. Dao is Balaram. And here, the deity at this temple is so beautiful. He's so mesmerizing. He's actually a white marble deity, very small, very, very small. And he is, Lord Balaram, but he, in his left hand, he is holding the Varuni, a glass of Varuni. And in his right hand, he has the plow, and he has Anantashesh on his hoods, like that, behind his head. Very beautiful deity, extremely beautiful deity. And just behind this temple, we can see the Jamuna in, really, we can see how she's going like this. And, Jamuna is pulled, like as Shukadev Goswami says, you can see a clear V, that Jamuna has come this way, just behind the temple. So it's very, very beautiful. Beautiful temple, extremely gorgeous deity of Khiche Dao. Jai Shri Khiche Dao Bhagavan ki Jai, Shri Balaram ki Jai. So this brings us to the next chapter, chapter 66, Paundraka, the false Vāsudeva. Shukadev Goswami said, O king, while Lord Balaram was away visiting Nanda's village of Raja, the ruler of Karusha, foolishly thinking, I am the supreme Lord Vāsudeva, sent a messenger to Lord Krishna. So it is said that since Lord Ram went to, Vraj, Balaram went to Vraj, Paundraka foolishly thought that Lord Krishna would be alone at this time. And therefore, it would be very easy for me to challenge. You see, the thing about Krishna and Balaram is that every battle, Balaram and Krishna are together, especially when Krishna was acquiring, his queens, when he came to battle with, with Rukmi, it was Balaram who got, who defeated. Then even to fight with Narakasura, everywhere Lord Balaram was accompanying. And this word very quickly spread amongst the enemies of Krishna that now Balaram has gone to Vrindavan. So, taking advantage of this opportunity, Paundraka dared to send his crazy message to the Lord. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this, that he dared to send a crazy message to the Lord. What was the message? This slow-witted king, Paundraka, he sent a messenger to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna at Dwarka. Paundraka was acting just like an unintelligent child whom other children are pretending is a king. So arriving in Dwarka, the messenger, he found the lotus-eyed Krishna in his royal assembly, and he relayed the king's message to the Almighty Lord. On behalf of Paundraka, the messenger said, I am the only one, I am the one and only Vāsudeva. There is no one other. It is I who have descended to this world to show mercy to the living entities. Therefore, give up your false name. O Sattvata, give up my personal symbols, which out of foolishness you now carry, and come to me for shelter. If you do not, then you must, fight me. So here, although he is challenging, this Paundraka is challenging Krishna, but still he is addressing Krishna as Sattvata. He was born in this beautiful dynasty of, wonderful kings, Sattvatam Kule. So he's addressing Krishna as Sattvata. Then Shukadev Goswami continues that King Ugrasena and the other members of the assembly, they laughed loudly when they heard this vain boasting of the unintelligent Paundraka. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, after enjoying the jokes of the assembly, he told the messenger, "You fool, I will indeed let loose the weapons you boast in this way. You go back and tell your king, O messenger of Paundraka, you may carry my message to your master. He is a foolish rascal. I directly call him a rascal and I refuse to follow his instructions. I shall never give up the symbols of Vāsudeva, especially my disc, and I shall use this disc to not only kill Paundraka but all of his followers. I shall destroy this Paundraka and his foolish associates who merely constitute a society of cheaters and the cheated." Krishna very, very powerfully spoke these words to that messenger. So when the Lord had thus spoken, the messenger conveyed his insulting reply to his master, and Lord Krishna then immediately mounted on his chariot and went to the vicinity of Kashi, because Paundraka had taken shelter of the king of Kashi. So upon observing Lord Krishna's preparations for battle, the mighty warrior Paundraka quickly went out of the city with 2 full military divisions. And Paundraka's friend, this king of Kashi, followed behind him, O king, leading the rare god with 3 Akshahini divisions of army. And Lord Krishna saw that Paundraka was carrying the Lord's own symbols, his own insignia, such as the conch shell, the disc, the sword, and the club. And also an imitation, Sharinga bow and the Srivatsa mark. He wore a mock Kaustuba gem also, and was decorated with a garland of forest flowers, and was dressed in upper and lower garments of fine yellow silk. His banner bore the image of Garuda, and he wore a valuable crown and gleaming shark-shaped earrings. And when Krishna saw, text 15, when Krishna saw Paundraka coming, Lord Hari laughed heartily when he saw how the king had dressed up in exact imitation of his own appearance, just like an actor. The enemies of Lord Hari then attacked him with tridents, clubs, with pikes, with barbed darts, with lances, swords, axes, and arrows. But Lord Krishna fiercely struck back at the army of Paundraka and Kashi-raja. And the Lord tormented his enemies with his club, sword, Sudarshan, just as the fire annihilates, and he just, destroys everything in its path. So Lord Krishna then addressed Paundraka. My dear Paundraka, the very weapons you spoke of through your messenger, I now release upon you. Savdhan. Like that. Then having thus derided Paundraka, Lord Krishna first destroyed his chariot with his sharp arrows. The Lord then cut off his head with the Sudarshan disc, just like, a person would peel out a banana. Like that, Krishna just cut off Paundraka's head with the Sudarshan disc. Then with his arrows, Lord Krishna similarly severed Kashi-raja's head from his body, sending it flying into the Kashi city with a lotus flower just like a lotus flower which is thrown by the wind. Now Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains why Krishna threw Kashi-raja's head into the city. Because it is explained that when Kashi-raj was leaving the city, this Kashi-raj had boasted to his citizens by saying that today I will bring my enemy's head into the midst of the city. You should not have any doubt. So therefore, the citizens of Kashi, they were waiting that today, our king is going to bring the head of the Lord of Dwarka. And therefore, Krishna, knowing this as a fact, he threw the king's head into the city to just, destroy all hopes that, those who want such thing to happen to, for others, it happens to them like that. That was the message Krishna was giving according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Text 23. Having thus killed the envious Paundraka and his ally, Lord Krishna returned to Dwarka. As he entered the city, the Siddhas of heaven chanted his immortal nectarian glories. So Krishna came back victorious. And then it is said, text 24, look at the mercy of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam describes this in text 24. By constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, Paundraka shattered all his material bonds. Indeed, by imitating Lord Krishna's appearance, O king, he ultimately became Krishna conscious. And Srila Prabhupada, he writes in his Krishna book, in regards to this particular chapter, he writes that as far as Paundraka was concerned, somehow or other he was always thinking of Vāsudeva, Sri Krishna, by falsely dressing himself in imitation of the Lord. Therefore, Paundraka achieved Sarupya Mukti and was thus promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, just those who achieved the same features of the Lord. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the form of Lord Vishnu, but because he thought himself Lord Vishnu, he was offensive. And after being killed by Krishna, that offense was also mitigated. Thus, he was given Sarupya liberation and he attained the same form as the Lord. This is the mercy of Krishna, that even in his killing, there is mercy. That this Paundraka, he was such an offensive person. He was saying that I am Krishna. But Krishna said that, oh, look, he's being Krishna conscious. He's dressing just like me. So Krishna gave him mercy. But now this should not be an example for us to think that, oh, if we also imitate Krishna, then we will also get this kind of mercy. Not necessarily. Just like how we may not be Kamsa, we may not be Paundraka, So therefore it is much more, to our benefit if we accept Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, that we remember Krishna in, utter dependence upon Krishna, in, favorably engaging in Krishna's service, anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. We must do anukula bhakti, which is favorable to our Krishna consciousness. But this just shows Krishna's mercy, and that's what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. So then what happened to the people in Kashi who saw the head of the king of Kashi? That is described in text 25, that seeing a head decorated with earrings lying at the gate of the royal palace, the residents of Kashi were puzzled. And some of them said, who is this? Whose head is it? And text 26, Shukadeva Goswami continues that, my dear king, when they recognized it as the head of their own king, the Lord of Kashi, everyone, the citizens of the city, the queens, the sons, the other relatives, they began to cry. They said, oh, alas, alas, what will happen to us? Then it is said that, text 27 and 28, that after the king's son, Kashi-raja's son, Sudakshina, had performed the obligatory funeral rituals for his father, he resolved within his mind that only by killing my father's murderer will I avenge his death. Thus, the charitable Sudakshina, together with his priest, they began worshipping Lord Maheshwara with great attention. And satisfied by that worship, the powerful Lord Shiva appeared in the sacred precinct of Avimukta and offered Sudakshina his choice of benedictions. The prince chose as his benediction a means to slay his father's killer. Lord Shiva told him in text 30-31 that accompanied by Brahmanas, serve the Dakshinagni fire, the original priest, following the injunctions of the Abhichara ritual. then the Dakshinangi fire, together with many pramathas, will fulfill your desire if you direct it against someone inimical to the Brahmanas. So instructed, Sudakshina strictly observed the ritualistic vows and invoked the abhichara against Lord Krishna. You see, Lord Shiva, although he had given this benediction, he put a condition. He put a condition that if it will work, your desire will be fulfilled if it is directed against someone who is inimical to the Brahmanas. And who is Krishna? He is Go Brahmana Hitayacha. So it will not work against Krishna. So this was, the purpose of, Lord Shiva trying to give a fulfillment to Sudakshina's, desire, but, working so that Sudakshina can, realize his mistake. Then it is said in text 32 and 33 that thereupon the fire rose out of the altar pit, assuming the form of an extremely fearsome, the fiery creature. It came out, and its face looked very frightful. And, it was like a demon. It was like a powerful demon, who was made out of fire. This monster raced towards Dwarka because he was created for the purpose of destroying Krishna. So this monster, this fiery monster, ran towards Dwarka and, shaking the ground and burning the world in all directions. And the people of Dwarka were, Krishna, Krishna, pahi mam, save us. Because, the city of Dwarka was starting to, they were feeling the fire. They were not yet burnt, but they were feeling the fire coming. So everyone went to Krishna, that Krishna, please save us, save us. And when Krishna heard that, the city of Dwarka, the people were so much, in anxiety, Krishna said, don't worry, I'll protect you. And the Almighty Lord immediately, he said, in fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna, he himself did not even come out. Because Krishna at that time, he was busy playing a match of gambling. He was gambling. And gambling means he was just playing dice, he was playing a match of dice. And he did not want to be disturbed by this petty matters. So Krishna just instructed Sudarshan that you go and take care. So Sudarshan immediately came out, and Sudarshan just, he didn't allow this fiery demon to come. And then the fiery creature, it is said, which was produced by black magic, it turned its face away and retreated. Created for violence, the demon then returned back to Varanasi, where he surrounded the city and then burnt Sudakshina and his priests to death, even though Sudakshina was the creator of this fiery demon. So Srila Prabhupada, he comments that having failed to set fire to Dwarka, the fiery demon went back to Varanasi. And as a result of his return, the priests who had helped instruct the black art of mantras, along with their employer Sudakshina, were burnt into ashes by the glaring effulgence of the fiery demon. So it is said, Prabhupada continues to say that according to the methods of the black art mantras, if the mantra fails to kill the enemy, then because it has to kill someone, it kills the original creator, it is said. Sudakshina was the originator and the priest assisted him, therefore all of them were destroyed. So, even Sudarshan entered Varanasi in pursuit of the fiery demon, and, it also burnt down. The entire city of Varanasi was burnt down by Sudarshan. And, it came back to Krishna. And, it is said in the last verse of this chapter says, Srila Shukadev Goswami says that any mortal who recounts this heroic pastime of Lord Uttama Shlokas, or who simply hears it attentively, will become freed from all sins. Jai Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki Jai. Brings back to the last chapter of today, which is chapter 67, Lord Balaram slays Dvivida gorilla. This text 1 says, the glorious King Parikshit said, I wish to hear further about Sri Balaram, the unlimited and immeasurable Supreme Lord whose activities are all astounding. What else did he do? It was as if, I think most of us are also feeling that, when I was reading also, I was thinking, oh, why did it just stop, at Kichedao, why did Lord Balaram's pastimes be not described further? What else did Lord Balaram do? So just like, as if understanding our heart, Parikshit Maharaj is asking the same question, that I want to hear more glories. Yeah, we know that Krishna is wonderful, but what else did the amazing Lord Balaram do? So Srila Shukadev Goswami said, yes, he did a lot of amazing things. One of them was that there was an ape named Dvivida, who was a friend of Narakasuras. This powerful Dvivida, the brother of Mainda, had been instructed by King Sugriva. So Dvivida was there from the time, just like Jambavan was there from the time of Treta Yuga. So even Dvivida was there from the time of he was present in the army of King Sugriva. And Srila Jiva Goswami refers here, and even Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that Dvivida, he was in charge of a few of the, his apes. He was in charge of, he was like the Senapati, like the commander-in-chief of a particular group of monkeys. And at various times, Dvivida, he was very powerful. He was a very powerful, monkey, powerful ape. And he at many times, he thought that he alone he would be able to defeat, Ravana's sons, or, especially had little envious nature towards Lakshmana. Because when Lakshmana was going to kill Indrajit, that time Dvivida said, I can also do it. He thought what Lakshmana can do, even he can do. So he had that, competition, like an envious kind of a competition, an envious kind of a nature that he had towards Lakshman. And this, this disrespect, that he had towards Lakshmana, it is said that, Lord Ramachandra did not like this. And because of this, he later became corrupted by bad association with the demon Narakasura. And, this bad association was a reaction that, for this offense that Dvivida had committed when, because he was so proud of his strength, he had disrespected Lakshmana. That's why, he got into this kind of bad association, and he became, very much affected by demoniac mentality. So it is said that even a small, when we have certain envious nature towards certain devotees, then when we are not, curbing ourselves, when we are not stopping ourselves to have that, a good association with that particular devotee, and if you want to, continue to fan the envious nature about some other devotee, Krishna does not like that. He immediately takes us away from the association of devotees, and, so that our, the negativity in us gets more fanned, and we just become completely sidelined from the mercy of the Lord. So we see here, this is what happened with Dvivida. So to avenge the death of his friend Narakasura, it is said that this ape Dvivida ravaged the land, setting fires that burnt cities, villages, mines, and cowherd dwellings. And once, while Dvivida was thus engaged in harassing the neighboring kingdoms and polluting women of respectable families, he heard very sweet singing coming from the Raivataka mountain. So he went there to the Raivataka mountain. Text 9 and 10 says, there he saw Sri Balaram, the Lord of the Yadus, adorned with a garland of lotuses and appearing most attractive in every limb. He was singing amidst a crowd of young women, and since he had drunk Varuni liquor, his eyes were rolling as if he were intoxicated. His body shone brilliantly as he behaved like an elephant amongst all of his associates. So this mischievous ape, he climbed a tree branch and then revealed his presence by shaking the trees and making the sound, kila, kila. This was the kind of sound he was making. We were listening to a lecture by Srila Radhanath Swami Guru Maharaj, and he imitates this sound, kila, kila, very cutely. So Dvivida was making this kind of sound just to draw the attention of Lord Balaram. So even as Lord Balaram looked on, Dvivida insulted the girls by making odd gestures with his eyebrows. He was like, doing odd gestures with his eyebrows, and he was coming right in front of them, and he was showing their teeth to them, and he was, showing them his private parts, and he was just insulting the women who were with Lord Balaram. And immediately angered at this, Lord Balaram, the best of fighters, he hurled a rock at him. But the cunning ape dodged the rock and grabbed the Lord's pot of liquor. He just took away Varuni from the Lord. And further infuriating Balaram by laughing and by ridiculing him, wicked Dvivida then broke the pot and offended the Lord even more by pulling at the girl's clothing. He started, pulling at the lady's clothes. So this powerful ape, puffed up with false pride, continued to insult Lord Balaram. Text 16, Lord Balaram saw the ape's rude behavior and thought of the disruptions he had created. Therefore, the Lord angrily took up his club and his plow, and having decided to put this enemy to his death. So mighty Dvivida also came forward to do battle, and he uprooted a shala tree with one hand, and he rushed towards Lord Balaram, and he struck him on the head with the tree trunk. But Lord Sankarshan remained motionless, as if nothing had happened to him. And then he struck Dvivida with his club, which was named as Sunanda. So the club of Lord Balaram is called as Sunanda. So struck by the skull, by the Lord's club, Dvivida became brilliantly decorated by the outpour of blood. Just like a mountain is beautified by red oxide. Imagine, this bloody sight, like a blood-filled sight is so beautifully described, like brilliantly decorated by the outpour of blood. So ignoring the wound, Vivida uprooted another tree, and he again struck Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram again shattered the tree into millions of pieces, and Dvivida grabbed again another tree. So fighting the Lord in this way, who again and again demolished all the trees, Dvivida kept on uprooting one tree after the other, and Lord Balaram kept smashing each and every one of them. So then the forest was left completely treeless. Then the angry Dvivida, he started releasing a rain of stones upon Lord Balaram. But the wielder of the club Sunanda easily pulverized all of them. Dvivida now clenched his fist at the end of his arms and came before Lord Balaram and beat his fist against the Lord's body. The furious Lord of the Yadavas then threw aside his club, and he threw aside his plow, and with his bare hands, he hammered a blow upon Dvivida's collarbone. The ape collapsed at this. Just one blow by the Lord's bare hands. Vivida collapsed and he started vomiting out blood. So it is said, Srila Prabhupada writes that at this time, Lord Balaram had become most angry because the gorilla was striking him with his hands. So Balaram, he said, now just with the strike of one hand, Dvivida would be gone. So in the heavens, the demigods, the perfect mystics and great sages, they cried out, victory to you, O Lord Balaram. Well done, well done. And they showered flowers upon Lord Balaram. So having thus killed Dvivida, who had disturbed the whole world, the Supreme Lord, Sri Balaram, returned to his capital as the people along the way chanted his glories. So this brings us to the end of this chapter. And this brings us to the end of today's session. We'd like to end here and with a beautiful meditation on the personality of Lord Balaram. So if we can just meditate, upon the beautiful, magnificent personality of Lord Balaram, starting from his lotus feet. It's a very, very beautiful meditation. so that we can try to keep Lord Balaram within the region of our heart, always locked up. So we start with his lotus feet. Lord Balaram's tender, delicate lotus feet are always anointed with the red alta. Lord Balaram wears 2 toe rings on both of his toes, the second toe and the third toe. And they are blue. One of them is blue sapphire and the other is a red ruby. Lord Balaram wears, pearl strung ankle bells. Very, very beautiful, with a little blue sapphire in between each, which beautify his, white lotus feet. And Lord Balaram, he is decorated with, blue garments, blue dhoti. And Lord Balaram wears a silky, satiny, pink cotton, sash around his waist, a cloth which is tied tightly around his waist. And then that waist is also decorated with a very beautiful, gem-studded gold, belt that he wears across his waist. Lord Balaram's navel is as deep as the ocean. It's reddish, like a beautiful lotus flower. His chest is as broad as the lion, as a hill, very broad-chested. And his arms are so long that reaches out to his knees. Ajanulambita bhuja. And Lord Balaram wears, four rings on each of his hands, each of his fingers. And he has beautiful bracelets and armlets on his entire arms. Lord Balaram has a beautiful flower garland. He wears a very, very beautiful, blue color choker. He has pearls strung around his neck, different other necklaces that are there on his neck. And his neck bears the line, just like Krishna's, 3 lines like a conch shell. So beautiful. And that brings us to the lotus face of Lord Balaram. His smile is the most attractive, the most enchanting. With his reddish lips, Lord Balaram, when he smiles and his pearl-like teeth are shining forth through that smile. And Lord Balaram's cheeks are always pink, pinkish cheeks. And his face appears like a white lotus which is completely blossomed. So delicate, so beautiful. And his lotus eyes, is just like the eyes of a deer. Lord Balaram's eyes are compared to the eyes of a deer or a doe. Very, very attractive. And Lord Balaram's eyes are reddish because he's so compassionate. He's so merciful. His eyebrows are just like Kandarpa's bow, like Cupid's bow. And Lord Balaram's hair, which are, the locks of hair that decorate his head, it's just like soft black cotton. So soft, so delicate. And it's tied up in a top knot. And there are pearls that are strung around it. And there's a beautiful white feather that Lord Balaram wears. So this is the beauty of Lord Balaram. We thought that we could end with this meditation on Lord Balaram. And with this, we end today's session. Thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today's quiz, we have 10 questions. First, why was Krishna not coming to Vrindavan even though he sent Uddhava and Balaram? Second, why was Balaram referred to as Sankarshan when he met with the gopis? Third, how is Jamuna river related to Krishna's wife Kalindi? Fourth, what is the difference between Krishna and Balaram? Fifth, why is Balaram called Khinche Dao? Krishna Chaitanya. Excuse me. Sixth, why did Krishna throw Kashi-raja's head into the city? Seventh, with which weapon did Krishna kill Paundraka, and what kind of mukti was given to Paundraka? Eighth, who took care of the fiery demons sent by Sudakshina? Ninth, who did Dvivida get into bad association with? 10th, what is the name of the club of Lord Balaram? So these are the the quiz questions for today's session. Let's see if there are any questions for today. Well, we thank Shweta Manjari, Varshana Chitra Mataji, Meena Mataji, Swati Mataji, Rajeshwari Mataji, Ma Baba, Menaka, Madhubhashini Mataji, Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu, Radha Krishnan Prabhu, Saumya, Sudesh Prabhu. Thank you all so much for joining. Lalita Mataji, Reena Mataji. Thank you all so much for joining in today's session on YouTube. These are the people. So we have a question over here that who actually was Paundraka by Swati Mataji? Who was Paundraka? Well, who Paundraka is not given here in Srimad Bhagavatam, nor did I actually research on it. So we can get back to you on who Paundraka is. Oh, I have it here. Okay, so he was a demon by the name Vena. Putana, the demoness and nanny of Kamsa, who's Putana, she was Tataka, the demoness who was killed by Lord Rama in her previous birth. So this, Paundraka was a demon by the name Vena in his previous life, it is said. So that's what I can give you for now. Let me see if there's any other questions. Geeta Varadarajan Mataji, thank you so much for your description. Thank you. All right, let me just check on Facebook if there are any questions. So on Facebook, we'd like to thank Ranjani Gopika Mataji. We'd like to thank Navarupa Giridhari Prabhu, Divyangi Lalita, Prema Vikas Prabhu, Shamala Gopika, Nisha Mataji, Maitreyi, Pushpa Preeti Mataji, who else? Narsimha Gaurahari Prabhu, Nisha Mataji, and okay, Nishthavati Jashoda Devidasi. So Nisha Mataji is Nishthavati Jashoda Devidasi. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So Shamala Gopika has a question. In Vaikuntha, Balaram is in Sheshanag form. Does he also have personal form, and does he have wife like Vishnu, have Lakshmi? This is from my son Lokesh. So Lokesh, very wonderful question you have. That does Lord Balaram have another form in Vaikuntha planets? So Lord Balaram in Vaikuntha, he actually exists just like Anantashesh. He is in the form of Anantashesh, and that's how he manifests himself. So he does not have a wife like Lord Vishnu there in Vaikuntha. A very wonderful question. So yeah, there is no account that we have that, Lord Balaram there in Vaikuntha, he's just described as Anantashesh, who, on whose bed Lord Vishnu lies down. So in different Vaikuntha planets, there's not just one Vaikuntha planet, there are many, many Vaikuntha planets. So in one of the Vaikuntha planets where Lord Vishnu is lying down on the causal ocean, there Lord Balaram comes as Anantashesh. And in different other Vaikuntha planets, like where, Lord Ramachandra is, that is Ayodhya, there, Lord Balaram is there as Lakshmana. So in different Vaikuntha planets, Lord Balaram, is definitely there, some with his consorts, some without his consorts, like Anantashesh, he doesn't have a consort there. So, but of course, Revati is his constant, associate, always there with Lord Anantashesh too. So hope that answers your question, Lokesh. Very, very interesting question. Any other questions? I'm just checking. All right, doesn't seem like it. I'm just going to check YouTube if there's any more questions. All right. Okay, so there's no more questions. Thank you all so very much for giving us your online association. We really thank all of you. We look forward to seeing all of you again in the next session. Thank you all so much. Oh, we have a question from Radha Krishnan Prabhu. Is Anantashesh and Adishesh same? Yes. Adishesh Nag, whom we call as Adishesh Nag, he is the same as Anantashesh. Yes, they are the same personalities, just different names. So hope that answers your question. Thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Iskon Vartaman Guru Vrinda ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Shitanath Pramanande. Hari 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 Bol. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.